Cop mocks black woman at airport regrets it when her husband shows up as airline owner approximately. 2,600 words. Imagine walking into an airport, your heart fluttering with excitement to see loved ones or embark on a long-awaited trip. Then, out of nowhere, the very people sworn to protect you turn hostile. In a flash, your joy evaporates, replaced by confusion and dread. That's exactly what happened to Danielle, a poised black woman on her way to a life-changing event, when a condescending cop seized the chance to mock and belittle her at John F. Kennedy International Airport. She never imagined that justice would come wrapped in an unexpected twist. Her husband, a powerful airline owner, stepping off the plane with a startling revelation. Danielle Edwards awoke before dawn in her cozy Brooklyn brownstone, heart racing with anticipation. She was scheduled to speak at a major conference in Chicago, and although she'd traveled countless times before, this trip felt special. She was one of the keynote speakers, poised to share her decade of research in technology and education at a globally recognized summit. Her parents, who lived nearby, had already called her twice that morning to wish her good luck, their pride evident in every spoken syllable. Tall, graceful, and radiating confidence, Danielle could easily command attention in any crowd. She was known for her brilliant mind, philanthropic endeavors, and unwavering passion for social justice. Yet, she had never been the type to put on airs. Despite her upcoming stardom at the conference, she remained humble and approachable. She glanced over at her husband's side of the bed, empty as expected. Isaiah Edwards, founder and major shareholder of a prominent airline called Skyrise Air, was away on business. He often hopped around the globe, dealing with various expansions and partnerships. They shared a playful rivalry over who would rack up the most frequent flyer miles in a given year. Although Danielle came from a successful background in research and tech, Isaiah's success in the aviation industry took them both to unimaginable heights. That morning, Danielle eased into her routine, a quick yoga session, a hearty breakfast, and a meticulously planned schedule to reach JFK Airport early. She wanted time to check in and perhaps review her notes for the conference in a quiet lounge corner. Her plan was to take the day's tension in stride. After all, she was about to board her own husband's airline. If everything went smoothly, she'd be in Chicago by early evening, just in time to settle into the hotel and prepare for her big speech. At John F. Kennedy International Airport, Danielle strolled into Terminal 2 with 2 suitcases, a small carry-on and a sleek roller bag. She was dressed in a chic navy blue business suit and low heels. Her hair, styled in a neat bun, accentuated her delicate features and calm disposition. As she neared the security checkpoint, she felt the hum of the airport's usual energy, announcements crackling overhead, the hustle of travelers, and the faint smell of coffee and freshly baked pastries wafting through the corridor. She reveled in this atmosphere, an emblem of movement and opportunity. She joined the line, passing through metal detectors and adhering to the Transportation Security Administration's procedures. But at the end of the line, she saw something unusual, a uniformed police officer who seemed unnervingly fixated on her. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man, sporting a crisp NYPD uniform and a scowl that seemed permanently etched on his face. She tried to brush off his stare as routine vigilance. Sometimes officers kept a watchful eye on travelers, especially in a major airport, but as she walked past him to retrieve her bag from the scanner, she heard a loud, derisive snicker. "Gotta keep an eye on you," the officer muttered. Not discreetly at all, Danielle paused. She felt a twinge of apprehension. The words alone weren't directly hateful, but it was the way he said them, the mocking, sing-song tone. She looked up with a calm but curious expression. "I'm sorry, did you say something to me?" The officer's name tag read Carlton, and he folded his arms as he glared down at her. "You folks sure know how to play the victim. Don't start anything today, lady. I'm watching." A few nearby travelers, noticing the tension, threw concerned glances. Danielle could feel her cheeks burn, a mixture of embarrassment and anger. She opened her mouth to speak but thought better of it. Provoking a cop who seemed to have a chip on his shoulder was never wise. Instead, she managed a measured response. "Have a good day, officer." Carlton smirked, replying just loud enough for her to hear, "Yeah, I've heard that before. Let's see how polite you stay once I check that luggage." Danielle turned to the TSA agent, who gave an apologetic shrug. She recognized the predicament. Stirring up drama now could make her miss her flight or, worse, escalate the situation. Choosing composure, she stepped aside calmly, offering no reason to spark conflict. She had a plane to catch, a speech to deliver, and a life beyond this moment. But inside, a storm brewed. Why target her? She had done nothing wrong. She wondered if her race had something to do with it. It wasn't the first time she'd faced bias, though rarely this openly in a place brimming with cameras and onlookers. Resolved to move forward, she gathered her belongings and headed toward her gate, shoulders back, head high. By the time Danielle reached gate 27, she'd pushed the encounter to the back of her mind. She found a quiet spot near the large windows overlooking the tarmac. Her flight was delayed by an hour, so she used that time to check emails and review her speech. The airport lounge buzzed with people sipping coffee, fussing with laptops, or trying to soothe tired children. About 40 minutes later, she heard a commotion behind her. Turning around, she saw Officer Carlton again, this time harassing a young man who appeared to be Middle Eastern. The man looked tense and baffled as Carlton questioned him aggressively about his travel itinerary. Danielle's pulse quickened. She didn't want to watch, but she felt compelled. Every traveler around them stared, some in dismay, others in fear. Carlton's loud voice cut through the lounge. "You people think you can just walk around here without me noticing. Don't lie to me. I know exactly what you're up to." Though she was in no position to intervene, Danielle felt a rush of empathy for the man. She glanced around. Airport staff seemed reluctant to confront Carlton. He was, after all, airport police. Danielle bit her lip. If he continued like this, it would only be a matter of time before he singled her out again. Sure enough, after the officer wrapped up that altercation, he swung his gaze around the lounge until it locked on Danielle. Her heart sank. He strode across the lounge in purposeful steps, stopping right in front of her. "On a business trip, Miss Edwards?" he asked, with a sneer. She hadn't told him her name. He must have seen it on her ID or boarding pass earlier. She forced a polite smile. "Yes, officer, just waiting for my flight." Carlton shook his head with mock sympathy. "Fancy suit, fancy luggage. Must be nice. Must have come into a lot of money somehow." His insinuation was clear. He was implying she didn't deserve her success, or that it might have come from dubious means. Her chest tightened. She inhaled deeply before responding. "Hard work pays off, Officer Carlton. I've earned every bit of what I have." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "We'll see how far that attitude gets you." To her relief, Danielle's flight began boarding soon after. She hurried through the priority line. Thanks to her premium membership, one of the perks of being married to Skyrise Air's major shareholder. She quickly found her seat in first class, stashed her carry-on in the overhead bin, and buckled in. She let out a heavy sigh, trying to release the tension from her shoulders. Just when the plane was about to push back from the gate, an announcement crackled through the intercom. The gate agent's voice was tense. "Passenger Danielle Edwards, please identify yourself to the flight attendants immediately." Danielle's eyes widened, and she felt heat flush through her body. "What now?" She pressed the call button, and a flight attendant approached, her expression concerned. "Miss S. Edwards, the pilot is requesting that you step off the plane for additional verification." Murmurs rippled through first class. Danielle's heart pounded. This was humiliating. She gathered her belongings, dread building with each step down the aisle, eyes of strangers following her. At the jet bridge, She was greeted not by the gate agent, but by Officer Carlton and two security personnel. "We need to run through your baggage again," Carlton announced. "Routine check." His smirk betrayed his intentions. It was anything but routine. The security staff looked uncomfortable, but they complied with Carlton's order. Danielle set her carry-on and roller bag on a nearby table, arms folded protectively. Carlton took the lead, rummaging through her belongings with little regard for her privacy. He pulled out her laptop, carefully packed dresses for the conference, and personal items. He seemed determined to find something incriminating. Travelers passing through the corridor stared, some whispering, others looking outraged on her behalf. Yet no one dared to confront a uniformed officer. Danielle glared at him, furious but trying to maintain composure. "Is there a problem, officer?" Carlton feigned ignorance. "I don't know yet. That's why I'm checking. Got an issue with that?" His mock-polite tone was even more infuriating. Minutes ticked by, stretching into a small eternity. After turning up nothing, Carlton zipped her bag shut and stepped back. "You're free to go this time," he declared, as though he'd performed some grand favor. The pilot, who'd come out of the cockpit to see what was delaying their flight, offered an apologetic nod, and Danielle reboarded. This time, though, her stomach churned with anger. She had done nothing to deserve such treatment. The flight took off half an hour behind schedule. Danielle tried to calm her nerves, focusing on her conference speech. She typed on her laptop, reviewing final notes. With each passing cloud outside the window, she felt the tension ease at least marginally. In Chicago, Danielle disembarked and was greeted by a driver holding a placard with her name. She still had enough time to check into her hotel and freshen up before dinner with some of the conference's organizers. There, she charmed the event team and other keynote speakers with her insight and generosity. She talked passionately about her research projects, which aimed to bring technology to underserved communities. Despite her outward composure, flashes of Officer Carlton's face invaded her thoughts. The humiliation, the anger, the sense of injustice all remained under her polished veneer. Still, she poured her energy into the conference. She delivered her keynote speech the next day, and it was a resounding success. Attendees applauded her innovative ideas, and the networking sessions afterward bubbled with excitement over potential partnerships. Meanwhile, Isaiah, her husband, was in Europe at a high-level meeting with potential investors for Skyrise Air's expansion into new markets. His phone lit up with an incoming message from the legal department. An airport policeman had forcibly removed a top-tier passenger from a Skyrise flight, rummaging through her bags. They included a note. "The passenger in question was your wife." Isaiah stood in the lobby of a 5-star hotel in Paris when he read the email. His jaw tightened. He read the entire report, which ended by stating that the policeman in question had singled out Danielle for reasons unknown. No contraband had been found, no reason given for the search. To say Isaiah was livid would be an understatement. From years of experience, he knew there was no good reason for an officer to disrupt a premium-paying passenger, especially not someone like Danielle. This smelled of profiling, something he refused to tolerate. Isaiah immediately cut his business trip short. Cancelling a day's worth of meetings was a heavy blow, yet his wife's dignity mattered far more than a few potential deals. He was determined to confront the situation head-on. 5 days later, Danielle returned to JFK, the conference in Chicago behind her. Isaiah, having arrived earlier from Paris, awaited her at the arrival's gate. He enveloped her in a warm hug. She felt the stress of the past week melt away in his arms. "What are you doing here?" she asked with a bright smile. "I thought you were in Europe until next week." His expression turned serious. I heard what happened, Danielle. You should have told me. Her shoulders sagged. She really didn't want to relive the ordeal. It's fine, Isaiah. It was humiliating, yes, but I handled it. He guided her toward a quiet corner, away from the stream of travelers. I'm proud of you for keeping your cool, but that's not okay. I won't let it slide. I need to have a word with airport management, possibly even the NYPD. Danielle saw the resolve in her husband's eyes. He was fiercely protective, and as a prominent figure in the aviation world, he had connections and influence. Isaiah, I don't want you to blow this up. I just want an apology. That officer was out of line. Isaiah exhaled. You deserve more than an apology, but let's start there at least. They decided to pay a visit to the head of security at JFK Airport, a woman named Linda McCann, who had worked with Isaiah on various security initiatives. Linda welcomed them into her office, a glass-walled corner overlooking the busy runways. She frowned as she listened to Danielle's account. I'm sorry to hear this. Officer Carlton has had a few complaints in the past, but nothing conclusive enough for disciplinary action. I'll look into it. Isaiah folded his arms. Linda, with all due respect, if this had happened to a random passenger, you might never hear about it. This isn't just about Danielle. It's about every person he's harassed. Something has to change. Linda nodded somberly. I understand. I'll expedite the investigation. But these processes take time. Meanwhile, I'll make sure he's reassigned to a less public role until we conclude. Danielle sighed, torn between relief that action was being taken and cynicism that the investigation would lead anywhere. She left Linda's office, hand in hand with Isaiah. A week later, Danielle was on another flight, this time to Los Angeles for a tech panel. To her astonishment, as she walked through the same security checkpoint, there stood Officer Carlton again, smug as ever. So much for reassignment, she thought. She kept her distance, hoping not to cross his path. But fate had other plans. Carlton seemed to spot her immediately. A malicious grin crept across his lips, as though seeing her was a personal victory. He waved her over. You, come here. She hesitated. I'm just going through standard TSA screening, officer. Is there a particular issue? He shrugged. Random check. His emphasis on random dripped with sarcasm. Despite her frustration, Danielle walked over. The officer gestured for her carry-on. This time, however, Danielle didn't hand it over so easily. She held on, looking him square in the eye. I'd like to see your supervisor before you perform any further checks on me. Carlton's smirk vanished. I am the authority here, Miss Edwards. Passengers in line began whispering. Danielle's voice rose slightly, determined to be heard. I have the right to request a supervisor. That's standard procedure. He looked around, noticing the attention. Reluctantly, he signaled to the nearest TSA manager. A woman wearing the official TSA insignia came over, and Danielle explained calmly that she believed she was being unfairly targeted. Carlton cut in. I'm just doing my job. This one's always got an attitude. Before the TSA manager could respond, a commotion at the terminal entrance made everyone turn. Isaiah Edwards walked in, accompanied by Linda McCann and two high-ranking NYPD officials. They strode through the crowd, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding. Carlton's face paled at the sight of them. Isaiah offered a polite nod to the TSA manager, then turned a stern gaze on Carlton. Is there a reason you're harassing my wife again, Officer Carlton? Carlton stammered. I was just protocol, sir. Linda stepped forward, crossing her arms. Officer, you were supposed to be placed on administrative review while we investigate the complaints against you. Why are you still assigned here? One of the NYPD officials, a stoic man with a silver badge, interjected. We heard you ignored the reassignment order. Carlton's face contorted in anger and desperation. "She's always making trouble. People like her." "Stop," Linda commanded, her voice echoing through the now dead silent area. "You've just made this a lot worse." The second NYPD official, a woman with a firm but calm demeanor, produced a small notepad. "Officer Carlton, please hand over your badge and firearm. Effective immediately, you're suspended, pending a formal investigation." A ripple of shock and relief spread through the crowd, which had grown in size. Carlton's eyes darted, searching for an escape. "You can't do this. I'm just doing my job." Isaiah shook his head. "No, your job is to serve and protect, not to discriminate and harass." He slipped a protective arm around Danielle. "And if you've forgotten that, you don't deserve the uniform." In the following weeks, an internal investigation uncovered a string of complaints filed against Officer Carlton. Several travelers came forward with stories of racial profiling and harassment. Video evidence, gleaned from multiple cell phone recordings and airport security cameras, showed Carlton repeatedly singling out people of color. One particularly damning clip recorded him boasting to a fellow officer, "I know how to sniff out trouble. Those folks can't hide from me." As the evidence stacked up, the NYPD had little choice but to terminate Carlton's employment. Official charges of misconduct followed, and a public statement was issued denouncing his behavior. Carlton's union-appointed attorney tried to argue that his actions were misunderstood, but the footage and testimonies painted a damning picture. Meanwhile, Danielle returned to her usual life of attending conferences, working on research, and supporting Isaiah's philanthropic projects. She experienced a sense of resolution, knowing the man who tormented her would not be able to repeat his racist behavior with impunity. Yet, she still bore emotional scars. Each trip through an airport now carried an undercurrent of trepidation. Isaiah, using his influence, ensured that every complaint related to Carlton was heard. He also funded a new training program for airport security and local police, focusing on anti-bias practices and community engagement. Linda McCann spearheaded the program at JFK, determined to restore public faith in law enforcement. Although Officer Carlton was fired, his bitterness festered. He refused to accept responsibility, convinced he was framed or betrayed by the system. He filed a wrongful termination suit against the NYPD, but with overwhelming evidence against him, his case had little traction. Still, the tabloids pounced on the story of a cop versus airline owner's wife, sensationalizing every detail. They fed on rumors that Carlton's downfall was orchestrated by the Edwards to teach him a lesson. The media storm only intensified as Danielle became a reluctant figurehead for those who had suffered similar profiling experiences. She gave measured statements to the press, emphasizing that her ordeal was not unique, that countless individuals faced harassment daily, lacking the resources or influence to fight back. Carlton, raging in interviews, accused Danielle of leveraging her husband's power. "She's the real villain," he spat on a TV segment, ignoring the facts. "She used the big guns to ruin my life. This is a class war, and I'm the victim." Those claims fell flat as the compiled video evidence consistently demonstrated a pattern of racial bias, which extended well before Danielle's involvement. Witness after witness testified to his abusive and discriminatory actions. After months of legal wrangling, the wrongful termination suit collapsed. Outraged, Carlton confronted the Edwardses outside the courthouse one day, screaming threats. A crowd of reporters and bystanders watched in shock. Police quickly intervened, placing him under arrest for disorderly conduct. Danielle stood a few paces behind Isaiah, shaken but resolute. She knew that, at last, she could reclaim her peace. In the end, Carlton's life took a stark downward spiral. Without his job, drowning in legal fees, and carrying a tarnished reputation, he found himself ostracized by many former colleagues. Stripped of the uniform he once wore to perpetuate injustice, he was left grappling with the consequences of his actions. The hard karma he faced was not just the loss of employment, but the dismantling of the fear-based power he had abused for so long. Danielle resumed her globe-trotting schedule, determined to expand her non-profit that brought technology to marginalized youth. She collaborated with Isaiah on new philanthropic ventures, including an initiative that offered scholarships for students who dreamed of careers in aviation and aerospace. The airport, once a scene of fear and humiliation for her, became a place of transformation, a reminder that even the harshest experiences can spark meaningful change. Skyrise Air soared to new heights under Isaiah's continued leadership. With Danielle's unwavering support, he championed diversity in hiring practices, forging alliances with other airlines to promote equity in the industry. They aimed to ensure that no traveler, regardless of race, background, or financial status, would suffer at the hands of discrimination again. Word spread among airline staff about the powerful moment when a cop mocked a black woman, only to discover her husband was not just any traveler, but the airline's owner. The story became a cautionary tale for those who might misuse their authority. Bigotry and harassment have consequences, and sometimes karma waits at the next gate. Thank you for tuning in to this dramatic story of triumph over prejudice and abuse of power. Danielle's experience at the airport reminds us all that we can never judge a book by its cover, because you never know who stands behind the person you're trying to intimidate. Her unwavering courage and her husband's willingness to use his influence for good serve as a powerful message for justice. Real change can happen when we stand against injustice, no matter where we find it. If you enjoyed this tale of karma, we hope you'll show your support for more stories that shed light on real-life issues and inspire us to be better. Please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more dramatic stories and thought-provoking content. Thank you for watching, and stay empowered.